Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm Innocent Christoph Gavin, and welcome to my newest review that isn't Sonic. Over the last few months, I've been incredibly busy with real-life commitments and such that I have not been able to play that many new games. Not games that were recently released, but games that I had never played before. Thankfully, a few managed to sneak in, including Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Spirit of Justice, Mega Man X5, Papers, Please, Dead Core, Bayonetta, The Sly Collection, and of course, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Among these was Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, a game I've been longing to play since I finished the original Shantae game and Risky's Revenge. Well, all I can say is that as soon as I finished it, I knew I had to review it. The Shantae series hasn't had the kindest history. The developer of the franchise is Way Forward, a company mostly known for making licensed games. Gotta pay the bills somehow, right? They created Shantae for the Game Boy Color, but was released with little marketing, and around the time the Game Boy Advance was already released. This led to the game failing hard sales-wise, as in Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric and Star Fox Zero kinds of failure. Way Forward created a small sequel for the DSi that didn't do very well either, but through trailers, a bigger budget, and help from Nintendo when it came to marketing, Pirate's Curse, the third installment in the Shantae series, did a heck of a lot better than its predecessors did. Critics loved the game and fans of the series adored it. Not much else is known about Pirate's Curse development, other than that it was teased in an issue of Nintendo Power before the official unveiling. Alright, well, with that said, why don't we dive into the plot. On a dark and stormy night, the players are shown a spirit boasting about how it will conquer Sequin Land and rise from the dead. This was all just a dream though. Of course it is, yeah, sure, yeah, it's not relevant in the slightest. It's like, yeah, we were definitely shown it for absolutely no reason at all, right guys? Right? Shantae wakes up feeling a bit uneasy. To give some context, Shantae has been having a hard time adapting to the lifestyle of a human because Shantae used to be a half genie. Due to circumstances at the end of the previous game, Risky's Revenge, Shantae has lost all genie powers. This devolution of power will later be revealed as the gateway to new gameplay elements. Oh, just you wait for that. Once Shantae wakes up, she hears a cannon going off. Oh god, for those of you unaware, Scuttletown has been attacked many times in the past. Crap. Shantae and some other characters try to figure out what's going on, but ultimately Shantae investigates. According to Sky Spire, the attack is not from Risky Boots, but Ammo Baron. Because the mayor is useless, Shantae confronts Ammo Baron and he's basically being a stubborn jerk who celebrates in the amount of power he has over the town. I really like how instead of Risky taking over the town, it's Ammo Baron. Not just because of the character change, but because of the reason Ammo Baron actually takes over. If the game's hilarious script is to go by, I'm pretty sure he took over just because he felt like it. As you progress throughout the game, Scuttletown will become more mechanized thanks to Ammo Baron, which is a really nice attention to detail, by the way. After a whooping, the Royal Guard commands Shantae to go to the library for misconduct? Shantae takes a bath to calm down, but then she realizes that she doesn't have a bathtub. What? I love this script. It was a trap set up by Risky. She accuses Shantae of kidnapping her men, but we the players obviously don't believe Shantae would do that. Risky then explains that one of her henchmen is being experimented on in Mimic's lab. Okay, I would say the fact that Risky even knows about this is unexplained, and therefore a plot flaw. But considering the fact that the story is mostly here for humor and world building, losing sleep over this would just be plain unfair. What is this, dual departure from reality? Anyways, Shantae doesn't know why Mimic is testing on Tinkerbats, but using dark energy, the Tinkerbat was turned into this monster, named a Cacklebat. Risky takes this as a sign, the fact that there's dark magic, that the Pirate Master has returned to Sequin Land. Upon the discovery, and for the first time in the series, Shantae wants to help Risky in the common goal of defeating the Pirate Master. After doing some tasks, Shantae can finally have access to the library and retrieve the desired map. This section of gameplay is a nice way to open up exploration, with the requirement of traversing through a small forest-like area just to get to the library. Once Risky has the map, the game officially begins, with Shantae going to each island and doing the tasks that allow her to enter the island's dungeon. The story takes a backseat at this point, but fleshes out characters and character interaction. Well, or perhaps you could call some of these character interactions as subplots. Now, the characters. In Scuttletown, you've got your good old Uncle Mimic, with him being a sort of father figure to Shantae. She has respect for him, and I respect Mimic's desire to keep everyone in order. He even calls out Shantae for sneaking into the library when fetching the map for Risky. Then there's my man Bolo. He's snarky in ways, but he's just a chill dude. It's revealed in a subplot that Bolo is apparently nearsighted, so he is seen wearing glasses later in the game. Once Ammo Baron takes over Scuttletown completely, trust me, I'll get back to that, Bolo joins his team for the sole reason of, get this, looking smart. Well, that certainly worked, because with those specs, he accidentally saved the day by messing up one of Baron's weapons. That's just funny. Another fantastic character is Squid Baron. The best way I can analyze him is with the way he expresses himself. He's very emotional and extremely quirky with what he does. I'd even call him a complete goofball at the end of the Lost Catacombs dungeon, where Squid Baron is actually the boss. Not because he turned on Shantae, but because he feels as though he is the best filler boss ever. Oh, okay. One of Shantae's friends is the zombie Roddy Tops, and she is just like she was in the previous games, so I'll save her for reviews of those games. Though, one thing to note is she forces Shantae to carry her across the whole island. What a jerk! And to wrap up, we have Sky, Sky's mother, and Joe. These characters are all involved in my favorite subplot. So basically, there's this guy who wants to find an ancient artifact, and he indeed did. Joe reads it aloud, and it says, "Death to them what reads it." And he dies! He just dies! What the heck? Sky herself doesn't have much character, but she plays the role of Shantae's friend, making a comment about Shantae every now and then. I could talk about more relevant people, but all hail Branson. Now, you know what I think of Pirate's Curse cast of characters. They're all phenomenal, very quirky, very eccentric, just great to read about. Oh, wait. Okay, I forgot about our main hero, didn't I? Shantae isn't exactly the most fleshed out character ever. Probably not even the most fleshed out in this game, but I do think she has a lot of likable traits. Shantae is extremely reactionary to conflict and is otherwise fairly calm, and I noticed during my first playthrough that she's definitely taken the loss of her genie power well. The plot doesn't allow for discussion on this loose end from Risky's revenge until the climax. A little disappointing considering how the loss of power is a big deal for someone like Shantae. Regardless of her situation, I think her playful style is brought out best in this game versus the predecessors. I especially like how she handles talking to Abler. Because he was saying some mean things, Shantae, without warning, snaps at him and defends Roddy Tops. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it. That's all I could say about Shantae's character in this game. Taking a couple points off way forward, I could have used a little more depth to her character, and I think everyone would agree with me on that to some extent. On a much more positive note, the writing itself is absolutely 100% fan-flipping-tastic. Pirate's Curse has to have one of the funniest scripts, and without being overbearingly funny, that it becomes sitcom or something, it strikes a great balance all the way through. There are some characters I glossed over, very minor ones, but they still offer something funny in the dialogue department, and the text for when a boss appears is just snarky. It's great stuff. And even with this emphasis on humor, Pirate's Curse still manages to have a climactic finale. I have many good things to say about the finale. The Pirate Master is taken Risky, and you can see the pain in her expression. Shantae's still willing to help, but in a twist I honestly didn't see coming, the Pirate Master takes all of Risky's gear from Shantae. However, Shantae will get her genie powers back in the end. Still, as strange as this is, we will have to fight the final boss with an extremely limited moveset. Though, this is a fantastic fight. It's a great challenge and very engaging, but I'll talk more about it with the other bosses later. With a happy ending, peace is restored to Sequinland. Excuse me. Risky doesn't completely hate Shantae, at least I think. And all of Shantae's friends thank her for saving the land. At least the dialogue's still well written because, meh. I mean, this ending doesn't really offer much, but the finale itself is good. Before the final boss, you actually have to traverse through one last dungeon. It reuses concepts from the entire adventure and severely increases the difficulty, making these just as fresh as they are frustrating. Many complained about this last area, saying it's too much of a difficulty spike. I disagree, because once you know what you're in for, it's really not that bad. Alright, that was the overarching plot and characters. Now for the scenarios on the islands. In Saliva Island, you'll meet these two college girls who come to the island to relax and have fun. The two find a pool and go for a swim. A little climb later, and the water is saliva from the dragon. Nice. Not much happens on Spiderweb Island, but this is where Shantae interacts with Abler and Roddy Tops. Tan-Lined Island houses the best subplot, with Shantae being mistaken as the long-lost princess of the Sand Temple? Okay, enough. Why does this game have to be so funny? Shantae is then forced to wear this, and she must rescue the other captured people, who are Risky, Roddy Tops, and Sky. Oh boy. And then, the real princess shows up. Okay, I quit. I'm done. Moving on. Mudbog Island has you meeting the alter ego of Roddy Tops. She's fairly similar to her usual self, though. Shantae will also meet this mysterious man. Lastly is Frostbite Island with nothing. I mean, Bolo is hanging out in Propeller Town for Ammo Baron, but that's really it. Overall, I've said it many times, I think the subplots in this game are really what supports the main plot. The main plot is well written, don't get me wrong. Pirate's Curse does not have an A-tier story by any means, but it's really enjoyable and tastefully done. Pirate's Curse plays like a more simplified Metroidvania that will require Shantae to sail the seas to islands. Yes, unlike its predecessors, the world has been divided into chunks, with this menu functioning as a level select to get to each. This might sound incredibly linear, but you still have to backtrack to previously visited areas. I'm personally fine with this linear structure for a Shantae game, but only because they handled it so well here. Each of the islands feel connected regardless and despite their size, and they offer a decent amount of exploration. Still being completely honest, I think this game uses the fragmented world design to make something that feels repeatable. Shantae's adventure is neither too short or too long, and I think length has to do with replayability with the overall structure of the game. Shantae controls absolutely excellently. She reacts to your movement with the analog stick very sharply, and her jumps feel floaty on the way up and heavy on the way down. It's perfect. Shantae's primary attack comes from whipping her hair, which can be upgraded in shops. It's satisfying to hair whip everything, and it's just a fun move to use. Now, you can buy power-ups from the shop such as the Pike Ball, as well as upgrades to your pirate gear, and we'll come back to that. I love buying items such as the Pike Balls because when selecting them, they essentially function like the briefcase from Sonic Lost World. You pause the game, and boom, there it is. Notice everything I talked about regarding Shantae's abilities are quick and simple. I cannot stress enough how fun the power of this speed feels. Those of you who are watching and have played Pirate's Curse, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, combat options are great and all, but how are the enemies handled in this game? The enemies will require multiple hits to defeat, and you can gauge how much damage you are outputting with this little number here. The enemies are a bit too dormant for my taste. Many of them are slow and don't attack often. I find touch damage a bigger issue than enemy attacks themselves, which is a damn shame. I still really enjoy taking them on, and if you want to, you can avoid dealing with most. I don't think I need to go over any of the enemies individually, but I will say that all of their designs are very—
What the fuck? Mother of—
Jesus! Pirate's Curse has some good bosses, but none of them stand out and all suffer from being too repetitive. The best are Squid Baron, Dagron, and the Pirate Master. Squid Baron can be spammed against with your hair attack until he encases himself with a metal casing. You'll have to use Risky's scimitar to be able to do away with the casing. What makes this boss a fun fight is the speed of Squid Baron and how hard it is to dodge his attacks. Dagron can be a bit frustrating. You'll need to use the boots to activate these tiny platforms. This will allow you to hit the dragon. Dagron will destroy the platforms with his spiked tail, and you'll have to watch your footing in relation to the dragon's movements. This fight shows how engaging spacing yourself amongst a room can really be. Lastly is our final boss. He has a ton of hard-hitting attacks with the ability to use these large scimitars. If that wasn't enough, he'll use energy ball attacks and will teleport like a madman. The key is to get on top of these skeletal platforms and hit him, but without a ton of pike balls, it can be a real challenge. So you know the drill. You go to each island, you complete the story task, obtain Risky's gear, defeat the dungeon boss, and get the map to the next island. I find the islands themselves lacking depth when it comes to exploration with this setup. They do have enough things to do, but even in simple Metroidvanias, I expect a little more hidden goodies than what Pirate's Curse offers. Despite that, these areas are very well designed. I enjoy the branching paths and fresh layouts of the islands. I'm especially thrilled to be able to backtrack to older islands with new gear and discover heart squids, which function exactly like heart pieces from The Legend of Zelda. Only difference is once you have 4, you head back to Scuttletown and talk to this crazy chick to get a heart container. You know what? Let's just review every island in the game. First is Saliva Island. This place is the smallest, being the first, but it does have a few secret areas. I don't have much to say, but I like these statues, I guess. The best part is the dragon at the top point of the islands, and as I already said, Saliva Island's name comes from the saliva being produced by the dragon, and these two college girls have no idea. Spiderweb Island is very linear, but is divided into 2 sections. There are 2 ways to get to the second half, which houses the dungeon and Roddy Top's house. The first way is by going through the mini-game of carrying Roddy Tops without being hit once. However, you can't actually do the mini-game again, so you have to resort to option 2. Talk to this guy, complete a side quest, and he'll take you in his carriage to the first half of Spiderweb Island. I really don't like this, as it feels unpolished and clunky to get through, but man, that atmosphere. Shantae has always been good at dark lighting and weather effects. Tan Line Island is the best, hands down. The open section is great platforming with the danger falling into the sand, and the enemies on this island are very tough. The best is the mini dungeon, if you will, the Tan Line Temple. Wow, this place is just oozing with atmosphere. It's designed in a way to use some of the light elements of your standard maze, with intertwining paths and secrets abound. I dared say that this temple is my favorite area in the game. It's well paced, it's creative, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Mudbog Island is a little strange. The opening area is filled to the brim with tough enemies, and a very desolate atmosphere. The next section has a more rocky and volcanic feel to it, but I don't care for the level design itself, it's just kinda boring. Lastly, it's Frostbite Island, and it's meh. Propeller Town is fantastic to traverse through though, it's my second favorite area in the game. It's very challenging, with the risk of falling and redoing parts of the area. This town will use almost all of your equipment, and sometimes together, which always wins points in my book. The problems I have with this island are in the ice section. This is the most flat area in the game, and it's absolutely lazy and bland. Sure, speeding through it with Risky's gear is fun, but the level design itself is so linear, it looks like it belongs in Infinity Maginian stage, for crying out loud. I find many positives in a lot of this game's gameplay elements, with some issues mind you, but by far the best has to be the dungeons. There are 5 main dungeons, excluding the palace at the end of the game, which is sort of its own thing. These 5 dungeons are structured very similarly to The Legend of Zelda Zone. You'll need to find a map, some keys, explore, backtrack, and find an item in the form of one of Risky's pirate gear. If you're familiar with Zelda's dungeons, then you should know how this plays out. Shantae receives the gear, uses it to traverse the rest of the dungeon, and then she'll use it against the dungeon's boss. So I'd have to say that if you enjoy the structure of Zelda dungeons, then you'll have just as much fun here. The first and the final dungeons are way too easy and a little bland, but at least they're fun to traverse through. The second, third, and fourth dungeons are definitely the best the series has to offer. The first dungeon will grant you Risky's pistol, and this is the one piece of equipment that doesn't see much use beyond the dungeon. I wouldn't even bother upgrading it in the shop, to be honest. The second dungeon has Risky's hat, which is phenomenal. Not only does it grant you upwards trajectory in wind, but it will allow Shantae to reach farther horizontally. Did I mention that the hat can be pulled out at any time, regardless if you use it once before landing? I think this is easily my favorite pirate gear in the game. You can use it in so many ways across your playthrough. Not quite as useful, but still pretty cool as the scimitar that you find in the third dungeon. This allows Shantae to break blocks below her and break hidden areas of floor. It can definitely be used in combat, but I recommend sticking to your basic hair move for speed. In the fourth dungeon, you obtain Risky's boots. Very clever. All I have to say is that, well, It's a speed booster. If you like the speed booster from Metroid, like me, then you'll love it here. The last piece of equipment is the cannon, which basically grants you 3 jumps after your normal jump. And combined with the hat, you get the picture. These pirate upgrades are absolutely stellar, minus the pistol. And you know what the best part about them are? You don't have to pause the game like transformations in previous games. It's absolutely 100% an instantaneous process in Pirate's Curse. Your gear is super fun to use, but the dungeon designs will indeed put them to the test. You won't have to backtrack as much in each of these, but the designs still feel interesting. The second dungeon is easily the best in the game for this reason. You'll need to find and activate 3 beacon points to progress to the top of the tower. In order to do that, you'll have to use these things to get across. Sure, it's trial and error, but satisfying when you find the correct path. The third dungeon doesn't do anything too outstanding, but it does offer switch puzzles not seen in the previous dungeons. And then the fourth dungeon has long linear rooms for you to test and master the speed booster. Overall, I honestly believe these dungeons are amazingly fun to go through and prove to have some depth in most of them. Let's wrap this up by talking about the presentation. This game is primarily sprite-based, faithful to the previous 2 games, but sparingly uses actual 3D avatars. The pre-rendered 3D sprites look incredible, and the recording that you see in this video honestly doesn't do the graphics justice, especially the smooth and crisp looking version on Steam. Trust me, these sprites and their animations are amazing. Personally, I'm really tired of 2D pixelated games coming out in this decade, but Pirate's Curse does look amazing. Deeper into the visuals, I want to say that I think these environments are bursting with detail. Locations such as Tanline Temple and Mugbog Island are extremely appealing to look at. Speaking of detail, these sprites are where it's at. Not only is there detail, but fluid animations given to all these characters. In dialogue, the characters appear with pre-drawn art, which will cycle depending on the emotion behind the character. These look really good, especially in the Steam release. Each character exhibits their own uniqueness in terms of design. Everyone stands out. Moving on, Pirate's Curse has an excellent soundtrack. Like, if Star Fox Assault is a 9 out of 10, and Mega Man X6 is a 4 out of 10, then I'd place Pirate's Curse at a 7. And I'm having 5 be, the average. Yeah, it's well above average. The composer is pretty well known for his work in the video game media, Jake Kaufman. Kaufman has always specialized in making music out of chiptune style, making the soundtrack a bit out of his league. Sure, you've got your chiptune instruments, but in reality, the instrumentation as a whole offers more realistic sounds than heard in previous Shantae titles. The blend of the dated and realistic sounds works a lot better than it sounds on paper, so huge credit to Kaufman for managing this. The composition is even better than the instrumentation Kaufman was given. A lot of the music is peppy and catchy, with atmospheric tracks thrown in for flavor. The music doesn't collate with the environments it plays in most of the time, but are still memorable. Here are some standouts. Jay Kaufman, I have a message for you.
Thank you for the music.
Seriously, outstanding. So, I mean, this game is very, very, very good, but it does fall a tad flat. A lot of the praise I gave for this game in terms of visuals, most of these assets were actually taken from the second Shantae game, Risky's Revenge. Granted, everything is graphically superior, but I guess my point is I can't give Pirate's Curse all the credit visually. If there has to be one flaw with the game even above that, then I think that the gameplay is a bit safe coming off of Risky's Revenge. And look, before you attack me, I didn't come into this review ready to say that. I really didn't. Especially because Pirate's Curse substantially improved upon the predecessor's shortcomings, which were a lack of content and overall short length. Again, I didn't come in here with lists of cons about the game. In fact, the cons are done. So, let's just wrap this up. Shantae and the Pirate's Curse is easily one of my favorite games of all time. It's got a great atmosphere with a light but well-made story, polished gameplay, fantastic visuals, and sound, and it's very replayable as well. I'm certainly not alone with my beliefs. My colleague Liam Triforce considers this one of his favorites as well, and just look at the general reception this game got. Critics and fans loved it. Loved it. If the only issue I find with analyzing this game is that it plays it safe, then consider me a jerk to give this game any lower than my highest of recommendations. Shantae and the Pirate's Curse is an absolute necessity.